India and China, two ancient civilizations, now modern giants, stand at the center of the 21st century's global transformation. Together, they represent nearly a third of humanity, and their relationship will shape the future of Asia and the world. For centuries, the Himalayas kept them apart, but today, globalization has brought them face to face. This proximity brings both opportunities for cooperation and the risk of intense competition. Their relationship is a paradox. Partners in forums like BRICS, yet rivals for influence across Asia. Their economies are deeply intertwined, but their political systems couldn't be more different. India, the world's largest democracy. China, a one-party state. These differences color their perceptions and national interests. For India, managing ties with an assertive China is its greatest foreign policy challenge, a delicate balance between economic engagement and strategic caution. India seeks economic opportunity, but must defend its sovereignty and strategic autonomy. This requires a sophisticated strategy, combining trade, military deterrence, and global diplomacy. We'll unpack the layers of this relationship: economic ties, competitive pressures, and the border disputes that have flared into open conflict. We'll examine India's responses, from military build-up to forging new global partnerships. The goal? A clear, concise overview of how India navigates its most complex bilateral relationship. It's a journey between cooperation and confrontation. The stakes are high, not just for India and China, but for the world. Let's begin. The economic ties between India and China have grown rapidly, making China one of India's largest trading partners. Chinese goods, from electronics to machinery, flood Indian markets, fueling industries and offering affordable options to consumers. But this interdependence is lopsided. India runs a massive trade deficit, importing far more than it exports. India's exports are mostly raw materials, while China sends high-value finished goods. New Delhi has pushed for better access for Indian IT, pharma, and agriculture, but progress is slow. Chinese investment, especially in tech startups, has fueled India's digital economy, but raised concerns about data security and foreign influence. The economic relationship is deeply entangled. China is a supplier, investor, and competitor all at once. For years, it was believed that strong trade ties would stabilize the relationship. But recent tensions have forced India to rethink the risks of economic dependence. The economic story is no longer a simple win-win. It's a complex web of opportunity and vulnerability. India and China are locked in a fierce competition for economic leadership in Asia. China, the world's factory, dominates manufacturing. India's Make in India aims to catch up and reduce dependence on Chinese imports. The rivalry extends to infrastructure. China's Belt and Road Initiative builds global trade routes, while India promotes its own projects with partners like Japan. India's approach emphasizes transparency and sovereignty, offering alternatives to China's model. The contest is also technological. Both nations race for supremacy in AI, 5G, and biotech. China invests heavily in state-led innovation. India leverages its private sector and engineering talent. The global tech landscape is splitting, with India navigating between US and Chinese spheres. This economic race is about more than growth. It's about shaping the future balance of power in Asia. For India, the challenge is to build self-reliance while staying globally competitive. The stakes: economic security and regional influence. The outcome will define Asia's next chapter. At the heart of India-China tensions lies an unresolved border dispute, a legacy of colonial-era maps and clashing claims. The 400-kilometer line of actual control, LAC, is undemarcated, with both sides patrolling up to their perceived boundaries. China occupies Aksai Chin, claimed by India. China claims Arunachal Pradesh, held by India. The 1962 war left deep scars, freezing relations for decades. In the 1990s and 2000s, agreements aimed to keep the peace with protocols for handling patrol face-offs. For years, this uneasy framework held, allowing trade and cooperation to grow. But the underlying mistrust never disappeared. Differing perceptions of the LAC led to frequent, tense standoffs. The system relied on both sides, respecting the status quo. In 2020, That fragile balance shattered as China mobilized troops along the LAC, triggering the most serious crisis in decades. The border, once a symbol of managed rivalry, became a flashpoint for open confrontation. The Himalayan fault line had ruptured again, exposing the limits of diplomacy. The border dispute is no longer a background issue, it's now front and center. Trust has been replaced by suspicion. The summer of 2020 marked a turning point. China's large-scale military moves in Ladakh were a direct challenge to the status quo, violating previous agreements. The Galwan Valley clash left casualties on both sides, the first in 45 years, shattering hopes for peaceful management. India responded with a massive troop buildup, tanks and fighter jets, signaling its resolve. Indian forces seized strategic heights, gaining leverage in negotiations. The trust built over decades evaporated overnight. The border is now a live front, with tens of thousands of soldiers on high alert. Disengagement talks have eased some friction, but the overall situation remains tense. The relationship has shifted from cautious cooperation to open confrontation. India's focus: deter further Chinese aggression and defend its territory. India has dramatically accelerated border infrastructure development in response to China's military challenge. For years, India lagged behind, fearing new roads could aid an invader. Meanwhile, China built extensive networks up to the LAC, creating a strategic gap. The 2020 crisis was a wake-up call. India put infrastructure on a war footing. New roads, tunnels, and airfields now connect remote regions, boosting military mobility and local development. This build-up strengthens India's deterrence and signals its readiness to defend the border. While there's more to do, India's progress has narrowed the gap. Infrastructure is now central to India's strategy of resilience and response. India knows it can't counter China alone, so it's building a web of strategic partnerships. The US is now a close defense partner, with joint exercises, intelligence sharing, and advanced arms sales. India's ties with Japan and Australia have deepened, focusing on maritime security and infrastructure. These relationships form the backbone of India's Indo-Pacific strategy, promoting a free, open, and rules-based order. India also engages Southeast Asia, Europe, and the Middle East, broadening its diplomatic reach. This coalition building is about pooling resources and creating leverage. India's activism signals to Beijing that its actions have consequences. By aligning with like-minded powers, India gains options and bargaining power. Diplomacy is now as vital as military strength in India's China strategy. Central to India's strategy is the Quad, an informal partnership with the US, Japan, and Australia. The Quad isn't a military alliance, but a flexible forum for upholding a free and open Indo-Pacific. While China isn't named, the Quad's purpose is clear: to balance Chinese power. The group cooperates on vaccines technology, cybersecurity, and maritime security. The Malabar Naval Exercise, now including all 4 members, boosts interoperability and sends a strong signal. For India, the Quad amplifies its influence and shapes the regional order. The Quad's revival marks a bold shift in India's foreign policy. It's about shaping, not just reacting to the Indo-Pacific's future. The future of India-China relations is uncertain, marked by competition, confrontation, and cautious cooperation. The Ladakh crisis ended the era of compartmentalizing disputes. Normalization now depends on restoring border peace. One likely path: managed rivalry, with a militarized frontier and deep mistrust. India will keep strengthening its military, building infrastructure, and deepening alliances to deter China. A return to stability would require major concessions from Beijing, unlikely for now. Even then, trust would be hard to rebuild. India will seek to reduce economic vulnerabilities and maintain strategic autonomy. India's approach: strengthen national power, build robust defenses, deepen partnerships, and manage economic ties carefully. Navigating China's rise is India's greatest challenge. The choices made today will shape Asia's future for generations. The world is watching.